Hey, thanks so much for coming down to my house.
Hey, my pleasure.
I just love to see people winning, and the fact that you've got so many different property developments going on, you've done well, bro.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's
Yeah.
been a long time, but yeah, thanks to in part to a lot of your training and a lot of your videos that I've pretty much consumed, most of them, if not all of them, on YouTube.
That's so good.
It's been a great help.
I really appreciate that. And you know what? I know there's nothing in it for you being here,
Yep.
apart from to inspire people, to encourage people.
Absolutely.
And that's why I run my whole channel. So why don't you just talk me through a little bit about how you get started in property? Because I know you've done a bit of training and it's helped you scale it, but you've been in property for how long?
Yeah, I bought my first property in 1996, the year that I got married.
So I would have been a kid at school right then, little kid at school. Little kid at school.
Maybe.
So talk me through the journey.
And the reason I did it is because my older brother, John, he bought a house in Lewisham, £60,000, 2-bed, 2 reception. He lived in one, rented out the other 3 rooms, was making loads of money. And within a few years, he sold it for 300 grand.
Nice.
And today that property is probably worth 700,000.
Yeah.
And so within a short period of time, I bought my first property in Lewisham as well. Bought it for 60 grand, and I sold it 2 years later for 112,500 pounds.
Nice.
So I made 50 grand for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I rented it out. We didn't call it HMOs back then, but it was a HMO. It was a room by room.
Yeah.
It was very much, they had to sort out the bills amongst themselves back then. You know, just rented out a room, and whatever they did, they shared it amongst themselves. And so that covered the cost of the mortgage, put money in my pocket on top, plus, 50, 60 grand profit in about 2-3 years.
And you know what though, when you buy at the right time, that can happen.
Absolutely.
Now, I wouldn't say it's harder, but I don't think you can rely on capital appreciation, which is why I'm a massive advocate for HMOs.
Yeah.
Talk to me about kind of what you've achieved since then.
Yeah.
I know you've scaled. When did you come to the crash course?
So I came to a crash course probably about 2 years ago, probably
Yeah.
about 2018, I reckon. So
Yeah.
what had happened, because I'm a pastor and I went into ministry, and I was heavily involved in ministry. I was doing 80 hours a week, pastoring every day. And actually for a few years, I was working a job in the city of London. I worked for a merchant bank. And so I was working full-time as a merchant bank, working for a merchant bank, and I was pastoring full-time and running the family. And so my initial rentals were just single lets. After that, at first initial room by room basis, when I got into the ministry, I thought, well, I'll just do single lets because it's easier. It's less time. I haven't got too much time to be managing those properties. So I'd rent out to a family. Wouldn't make much per month, maybe a couple of £100 a month.
Yeah.
But there was a great capital appreciation over the long term. So I had several of those. And then when I came to your course, I'd already had in my mind the idea of doing HMOs. So I come to your course and I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to what you're talking about HMOs, and it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It made complete sense. I was there hitting myself thinking, why didn't I do this years ago? And in addition to that, what had happened is that one of my properties, we'd let it to 3 guys on a single tenancy. They'd come in together. 3 of them were on one contract. And what they did, they brought in 2 of their friends, and they were all living in rooms. And so they were HMO amongst themselves internally.
In your house?
In my house. And so I was like, even these guys have got enough sense. And I wasn't bothered by that.
Yeah.
They paid their rent on time. So that was actually my first HMO. And I said to them at the end of the tenancy, guys, I'm going to transition to renting out the rooms. Well, they all stayed.
Yeah.
And they decided to pay me £500 each. I think on that one, I was getting £1,400 a month rent, and that went to £2,500, or £2,650 actually, because they were all paying 500 and above. And so they were doing their HMO amongst themselves on a single let.
Yes.
And so as soon as I said, actually, I'm going to make this official,
Yeah.
they all said, oh, we're going to stay, we'll just pay you.
But that's just the smallest little change though.
Absolutely.
Being aware of something. Like, oh, you can
Absolutely.
and then suddenly bang. When we met at the crash course, I hope you don't mind me asking,
Go for it.
what kind of money were you making in property when we first met in
Oh, that's a
2018?
good question. I was probably across the portfolio, I'm thinking, I know I had several properties. I was probably making 1,000,
Yeah, so it's not
Maybe
bad.
£2,000. No,
Very
across
good.
a lot of them though. That's
Yeah.
the total.
Yeah.
It wasn't that huge at all.
No, but to a lot of people, I mean, that's a lot better than most people.
Yeah, I
And-
know, but for having several properties, it was only a few £100 in
Yes.
London.
Yeah.
It's not a huge
And
amount of money.
and you'd got to that point, you're making 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah.
You'd got to that point by what? Just like working hard, saving money,
Absolutely.
buying houses.
Delayed gratification.
Great. So you had all the discipline, you
Yeah.
had all the money
Yeah.
management,
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
that
absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely.
But then 2018, you switched up the strategy a little bit.
Yeah.
How much are you making right now today, a profit per month across the board in property alone?
I would say it's going to be at least 10, 11, 12,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Simply by changing that strategy. And also what I do, I use the BRR strategy as well. I
Great.
buy properties that typically need a light refurb, as light
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And I force up the value and refinance. So I've done 3 this year.
Yeah.
I've probably done 2 or 3 last year. And yeah, I'm constantly doing them. And I'll probably do maybe 1 or 2 before the year finishes.
So what I want to know now is I want to know the secrets, the nuggets, the wisdom. Because it's so funny because everyone's got their own story, their own version, their own. So I might do something and teach something and say something one way.
Yeah.
You might adapt it to the same thing, but communicate it in a totally different way, which reaches more people. So what have been the biggest kind of lessons if you were sort of advising someone in property?
Yeah.
Say you're talking to someone who's got a couple houses, they want to scale, they want to do
Yeah.
HMOs, want to do bills. What would be the best piece of advice you'd give to them?
Well, I think it starts off with education. That's without, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to start some development work. And one of the first people I called was a guy who I know who's currently right now, shout out to Everton, who's building his own house. He's building a house. So
Yeah.
I called him up. I've got a ton of questions. He's sending me spreadsheets. He's sending me information. And it's interesting, a 2-hour conversation with him or an hour conversation with him has informed me enough to make me more confident in this deal that I'm about to try and acquire. And so you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear around investing in property because if you get it wrong, it's a lot of money to get wrong with.
Yeah.
But I think that fear is mitigated by knowledge.
Love that.
If you know what you're doing, if you're confident in what you're... I mean, the fact that it took me several years to transition from single lets to multi-lets.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the amount of due diligence I would do before getting a property, I would spend weeks trying to do the figures, do all the comparables, does the figures stack up? One of the properties I bought this year, I didn't even see the property. I got to the auction late because I was after another property, was frustrated because I had all of this work done for this property, flicked through the catalogue, saw something, did some due diligence there in the auction hall, online, etc., and I bought it.
Yeah.
And that at the moment is giving me 40% return on investment.
Incredible.
And so it took me years to transition from single lets to multi-lets. But once I had that knowledge and done my first 1 or 2 multi-lets, it became water for ducks back.
Yeah, I love that.
And so that knowledge certainly is the key thing. The second thing I would say is taking action.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially in my world, a lot of people talk. And we talk a lot about, we're going to do this one day, do that one day. And, those days pass. And you've been saying the same thing for the last couple of years. So certainly education, taking action would be 2 of the critical things if you're going to make it in property investing.
I love that, bro. Yeah. I would say knowledge, action, belief, and persistence.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Yeah, that's the ingredients to the cake of success.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. Are entrepreneurs born or made?
Are they born or made? I'd say they're more made than born.
Okay.
I think it's more nurture than nature. However, some people are, by nature, entrepreneurs. I actually think it's your world, it's your environment.
Yeah.
Some people are, I'm Nigerian, my parents are Nigerian. Nigerians are by nurture entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Might not always be the best ones, but they've certainly got an entrepreneurial spirit about them. And so some cultures, entrepreneurship is just a way of surviving.
Yeah.
If you're not an entrepreneur, because there's no welfare system, there's no government assistance, there's no welfare housing, there's no council housing. So if you don't work out how to turn £1 into £2, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of nurturing that comes through it. So I believe anyone can be an entrepreneur. if they can get there, if they can acquire the mindset of an entrepreneur. And so if you come from a very affluent background where everything's done for you, you've never had to work for money, etc., etc., you can still become entrepreneurial, but something's got to change in your mind, as opposed to someone who's like, hey, I've got to hustle today because if I don't work, I'm not going to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're under that sort of pressure, if you have to go out of your house first thing in the morning to look for money to feed your family that day, you have the energy for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And you just need to ally that energy with education, the right environment where you can, be successful.
So interesting you say, because most of my friends and even students and myself who are entrepreneurial, making very good money, actually started with very little and had to really hustle hard.
Yeah.
So now when I see people, I was just chatting, you just met him, to a pizza guy.
Yeah.
He literally stopped me in the street, hey, and now he's around my house, we're doing deals, but it's like...
Yeah, I was raised in the council house.
Right. I was going to ask you about your background,
actually.
actually.
I was raised a single parent. My mum died when I was young, so I was raised by my dad, and we've got 4 brothers. And so he was raised in a very masculine, alpha male, but poor environment. And it's very interesting that as I look at all of my brothers, how we've all turned out, none of us are poor today.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with our upbringing. That's why I mentioned it's nurturing. Sometimes when you come from an environment where you didn't have anything, you certainly learn just by me. And even then, when you get something, you're always very aware of what it's like not to have anything.
Yeah.
So this is the other thing about risk, is that sometimes when you come from a poor background, when you get something, you like to hang on to it.
Right.
You don't want to release it so easily, because if you screw this up, you don't want to go back to where you've gone. So something has to shift in your mind, that you've got the knowledge, you've got the skills, like you said, the belief, that even if you were to lose, you would get it back again.
Yeah.
However, I've never lost on property. Ever, 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 ever. Never, ever.
Yeah, and you know why though? Because not only are you educated and you've had to learn and you've done training and different things, but also property is a pretty safe investment.
You know, if I knew back then what I knew now, my property portfolio would probably be worth 100 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they say property prices double every 10 years. I disagree with that. I think in London, it's every 5 to 6 years.
It can be.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I bought a property, 60,000, sold it 3 years later for 112,000.
Yeah.
I sold it in 1999. The guy who I sold it to sold it in 2015. I checked it online, and I think he sold it for $500,000. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But you know what's really interesting?
4 or 5 of those.
Yeah. But in 2009, 2010, everyone was saying, it's terrible time, it's terrible time.
Yeah.
From 2009, 2010 to 2015, 16, properties did double.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right in the brink of it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's working Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Canary Wharf is typically a very under-deprived area, very poor, run-down area. And I can remember when I worked in Canary Wharf, my supervisor buying a flat for £150,000.
Yeah.
And I remember mocking them, saying, you got ripped off. There's no way on earth that flat's worth 150,000. It's $1 million today.
Wow, interesting.
It's $1 million in 20 years.
You know what, though? Whilst I do agree with you completely, the way I teach, and you know this because you've done some training, is very much around cash flow.
Yes.
Because I think cash flow is king.
Yes,
because capital
absolutely.
appreciation is nice, but it does not pay the bills. It's nice when it happens, but you can't bank on it. So cash flow, you've got 10, 11, 12,000 pound profit coming in cash flow per month. What kind of advice would you give to somebody around trying to maximize their cash flow, going from someone that's a single let investor to a multi-let investor? What were some of the challenges, some of the lessons in making that transition and upping that cash flow?
It was real easy. Just do it. I mean, I remember you saying one time in one of your videos, you turn a front room into a bedroom by putting a bed in it.
Yeah.
It was like, that's too easy. Do you know what I'm saying? It really is too easy. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask me, well, what you got to do to the rooms? I said, listen, you got to put a bed in it.
Right.
And they're like, okay, go on. I said, that's it. It's a bedroom.
Yeah, so true.
And so,
true.
multi-lets is actually very little difference. And I was very nervous. It's going to take me more time. If I spend maybe 2-3 hours a week on my portfolio, that's a busy week.
Right.
Someone's broke something. Someone's broke a washing machine or someone's, they've done something and I've had to get involved in it,
And
et cetera,
same
et
story with
cetera.
my portfolio. I got management systems all set up, but then I've got an overseer who
Yeah.
manages the managers. So
That's
for me,
right.
it's 5 minutes a month.
Yeah,
And
there
people
you go.
people think I'm joking. It's like, no, it's 5 minutes a month on the management. People think I'm joking when I say put a bed in it. People
Yeah.
think I remember saying, actually, it was even, I know we were talking about before, it was even Channel 4
Right.
that took a little clip of me at a crash course saying the asking price, I was saying the difference between the asking price and the market value.
Yeah.
It's like the asking price is what they're asking.
That's right.
The market value is a different thing.
That's right.
And they were like, oh, it's so obvious, it's so basic. It's like, no.
That's
what?
right.
It's,
That's right.
It's really important.
Absolutely.
People sometimes will think, oh, I got it 20% below market value. No. You got it 20% below market asking price.
That's right. Absolutely.
Very different thing. It's
right.
these little things which can make a massive difference, but actually they're very simple.
Yeah. And valuers know the difference.
Yeah.
Valuers don't care when you try and refinance on the property. They don't really care what you're trying to ask
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
They will go through and say, well, no, this is the market value.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone's got, you're right, cash flow is king. There's no two ways about it. And if anyone has single lets and they're trying to transition into multi-lets, they just need to get them done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Especially as there's a lot of Article 4 coming in and
Sure.
planning permission, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a no-brainer. And actually, for me, it's been actually safer because I did a single let one time where the tenant didn't pay the bill.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I've never had a HMO tenant not pay their bills. And it's something about, and even if they did, at least you've got other income streams coming in from that property.
Yeah.
When you do a single let and they don't pay their rent, that's it. You're not getting anything from that property.
Correct.
Whilst they're not paying their rent.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got 5 people and one doesn't pay, at least you've got 4 income streams coming.
Yes.
And one's been clogged up. But generally speaking, people that rent rooms, in my experience, tend to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Tend to pay the rent. And if you have a single let, you can't even go into the property.
No, you can't.
You can't even go into your own house.
Yeah.
If they say we don't want you to come to the property, you can't. But on a multi-let, legally you can. You can't go into their rooms, but you can be around the building doing maintenance, doing checks, etc., etc.
What kind of areas are you investing in around London?
Croydon, South London.
Croydon.
All of my properties are within a 10-15 minute drive from my house.
What kind of demographic tenants do you have?
Working professionals.
Okay.
So oftentimes if I go to the house, no one's in.
Yeah.
They're all at work.
You ever have students?
Once or twice.
Graduates
very
though,
rarely.
right? Masters and stuff
That's
like that.
right, absolutely.
Not these 18-year-olds.
No, that's 2 years. Well, 16-year-olds. So one guy wanted to rent my place and his dad was going to be guarantor for it, but it hasn't worked out yet.
Yeah.
Because I think he's too young.
What about LHA, benefit tenants? Nah.
I don't mess with none of that stuff.
You know what though? It's good because
I have people who worry about their credit score.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People who work a job, they've got regular income
Yeah.
coming in. And what I offer them is very nice, newly refurbished, clean, modern accommodation at the cheapest price.
Yeah.
Very rarely are you going to be able to rent something as nice as this, cheaper than what I'm offering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you know what's good though? You know your market.
Yeah.
You know your product.
Yeah.
And that's called business.
Absolutely.
So it's not discriminating. It's not. But people say this though.
Well, I read a blog where some government minister was saying you shouldn't be asking people
Yeah.
that or you shouldn't be.
No DSS. They banned it from the adverts.
Yeah, that's right. You can't say no DSS. You can't say you must be working full time, etc., etc. But that's actually nonsense because actually, if you do landlord's insurance, one of the questions they're going to ask you is what type of tenants are you having in your property?
Yeah.
And guess what they ask you? Are they DSS? Are they working full time? Are they students? Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So the legal system says we want to know what type of tenants, but somehow we can't ask the question.
Exactly. And it's like if you go for a mortgage, they're going to say, "Can you afford it? Are you working?"
Absolutely.
I think someone if they're working is checking they can afford it.
And if you try to do a buy-to-let mortgage for DSS, I don't think you'll get it.
No.
If you said to them, "Oh, I'm just going to focus on this particular market," I think they might be a bit nervous about that.
Yeah.
And
So what's the? I mean, you're a pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to Christ?
I became a Christian in 1994. I was a typical red-blooded young dude. I was attending North London University. Went into the library. My friend Delroy was talking to 2 girls. I said, "Well, he's got 2 girls. He can talk to one. I'll talk to the other." I started talking to the other girl. And within 10, 15 minutes, she said, "You need to come to church with us. You need Jesus." And I was like, okay. We ended up going to a church. I got saved that night. gave my life to Christ in Walthamstow, East London in 1994.
Okay.
And then, it's been awesome since then.
And you've got such a massive heart to inspire.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a bit about that, because I mean, there's parts of Croydon that ain't that nice, right?
Yeah.
There's some rough parts.
Yeah.
I mean,
But there's also some very nice parts.
Of course. Like everywhere.
Like everywhere. That's
Everywhere's
right.
got its good. I mean, we're right now in a nice part of Beaconsfield, Buckinghamshire, but there's still parts where there's council houses and stuff.
Yeah.
It's always the case. What's your reason? Why are you doing this? Why are you in property?
Well, I think, number one, it's for me and my family.
Yeah.
You know, I want to leave a legacy for my kids. I want to leave an inheritance for my children's children. I'm also a grandfather, so I'm thinking 2 generations or more down the road. And also because I grew up poor, and I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be poor, and I know what it's like not to be poor. I really do prefer not being poor.
Yeah.
All right, there's a big difference. But also, so much of our problems in our community are economic problems. You know, we got parents who are working 2-3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. You know, the kids come from poor backgrounds, typically tend to get into trouble. And so it's about empowering people with the knowledge where they can be financially free and they can make choices. Money doesn't make you happy, but money does allow you to make choices that can take away some pressures, which can give you a sense of happiness.
Sure.
You know, that's what people don't understand. And so, and I think in this country, poverty shouldn't have to be you don't have to accept being poor. Not in Britain, not in London. Are you kidding me? The guy who washes my car drives a Range Rover. You know, he comes over, I'm not even sure what country he's from. He's from an Eastern European nation. He comes over, he's washing cars. He works 7 days a week. I don't envy him. You know, he works when it's cold, when it's snowing. He's out there washing cars. But he owns a fleet of vehicles. He owns houses. Yeah. In fact, the last time I saw him was at an auction. He was buying properties. Wow. He washes my car. Yeah. He charges me £10 to wash my car. And he does a job that most of us don't have the time to do and I wouldn't spend an hour of my time washing my car because my time's more valuable. But here he is. He's a hustler. He's employing people. He's providing employment for people. He's doing well for himself. And so I don't think you've got any excuse to be poor in Britain. Yeah. Which is why I say it has to do with your education, has to do with your environment, has to do with your energy. You need energy. You need to go out and do something about it. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people, they watch videos, they have lots of conversations, they get a lot of education, but they just don't take a risk. Yeah. They're, they settle for the status quo, and they settle for, like I said, I was raised on welfare and in a single parent home. I left school in 1988, and every month since I left school, someone's given me a paycheck, alongside me being an entrepreneur as well. And so, for me, Britain is such a great nation. Yeah. It's a land of milk and honey, land of great opportunity. Anyone with any gumption and some energy, you owe it to yourself to do well.
I couldn't agree more with that. I want to ask you a bit about the current climate, because right now, we're in a very strange time. Yep. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. What does that mean for the property entrepreneur? What does that mean for the property investor? Opportunity. Right.
Every situation is an opportunity. Below market value, genuine below market value opportunities. Even the rental market. If people lose their jobs or lose their homes or can't afford their mortgages, they're going to be more likely to rent. And so the rental market's going to be driven up. They're going to be more likely, if there's single people, more likely to rent a HMO room, etc., a room in a shared house. There's opportunities out there. Yeah. I mean, I've looked at several online auctions in the last month, and all of them are reporting record sales. Yeah. I watched one auction in the Midlands. I was looking at 5 properties in the Midlands, and I was astounded as to how much these properties were going for, because the guide price was 1/5 of what the actual real price was. I think they changed it just before the auction. And I was saying, man, that's crazy. But people were fighting over properties. Yeah. And I think that particular auction, they sold 200 properties in one day. Yeah. In the middle of a pandemic.
In the middle of a recession.
In the middle of a recession. So obviously, there's opportunities out there. So you just got to look for them. You just got to
The market's going crazy right now, and,
Yes.
and I reckon this is always the case. People say, what are house prices doing? Well, firstly, house prices are different in every area.
Yeah.
So I believe every city has its own economy.
Yeah.
I also believe if you want to predict what's going to happen, you need to look at what's just happened and see the pattern. Properties go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. Everywhere follows London, but London's no different. So you need to think, okay, well, when should I buy?
Yeah.
Buy for cash flow, buy at the right time, but there's always opportunities to make money in property. The season where more people became millionaires than ever before was actually just after World War I and World War II.
Yeah, I can believe that.
So when there's absolute crisis going on, in a crisis, Grant Cardone says, never waste a good crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so
absolutely.
while people are panicking, Warren Buffett. When people are afraid, you be greedy. When people are afraid, that's the time to get greedy.
That's right.
And the thing that freaks me out a little bit, Clement, is that people are losing their jobs right now.
Yeah.
The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that don't step up and educate themselves, that don't pull the pants up and start working instead of just talking, that are going to really suffer over the next year or two. And that's part of the reason why I do this, because I want to wake people up. I want to get people financially educated and financially literate. But I mean, what do you think the fundamentals are that people need to really do to educate themselves, to wake up, to like what's
Well, they've got to be dissatisfied with their status quo.
Yeah.
You've got to be dissatisfied enough to do something about it. I think being comfortable is the enemy of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not worried about your future, if you're not worried about your kids or your children's children, if you're not worried about how things are going to work out for you, you know, that's the first step. And that worry has to translate into an action. Yeah. So what do people need to do? They need to go decide what they want to do in life and get educated in that stream, you know. Again, I started off just doing single lets, moved to multi-lets, and now I'm going to start doing developments. It's because as I've got good at one stage, I've kind of moved on and transitioned to another stage. And so I think that this crisis with people losing their job is a great opportunity for people to become entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's a good time for people to say, you know what, I can't rely on the job. Yeah. This is another thing. People they'll sacrifice time with their family to go and work a job. They'll work 6-7 days a week. They'll do overtime. They will almost sell their soul, if I can use that language, for their boss. But the first opportunity the company gets to make you redundant, they'll make you redundant. I used to work for a merchant bank. It was a good employer, wasn't a problem. But today, I don't think, there was 250 of us when I was there. I don't think there's more than 5 people still working for that company from when I was there 20 years ago. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, you tend to move on or you get made redundant. Yeah. So you can't put your trust in an employer to make you financially free, to make you wealthy. You've got to take, you've got to take your own destiny into your own hands, and you've got to make it work. And you've got to own it. You've got to take ownership. Yeah. And that's what I learned from a very young age. I was doing milk rounds, paper rounds when I was 10 years old. I was working for pocket money. If I needed something, I had to go out and work for it. Yeah. It was never given to me on the plate. And so I think people just need to be dissatisfied. Yeah. They need to want more. They need to say, well, listen, I want more out of life. I want to, and there's opportunity all around you. You know, the guy who washes your car is a millionaire. Yeah. He's a millionaire car washer. Yeah. All right. He's been in this country 10, 15 years and he's grafting. Yeah. You know, no one gave him anything. You know, what did he see that I didn't see? And I think, and get around people who are hungry. Get around hungry people. And you keep talking about environment, and I'm so glad that you do that, because I'm a massive believer that who you surround yourself with is who you become. Environment is stronger than willpower. Yeah. And yes. And I think that's really important, because people think they just need to psych themselves up and then they just set goals. If you're doing it alone, it's not going to happen. If you're around people that are doing it, it becomes normal and it just happens. And that's why your crash course was so impactful for me. Because I think there must have been 800 people. I'm like, man, there's 800 property investors there. And during the coffee breaks and talking, some of this stuff was evidently obvious to some people and it was new to some others, you know. And you realize that if you want to be a property investor and you hang out with property investors, property investing becomes easier. Yeah. It becomes more normal. Yeah. But when you're trying to, God bless all my friends and my family, but sometimes if I tell them what I'm thinking of doing, oh, are you sure about that? Oh, how's that going to work out? You know, because some of them themselves are not property investors, and because they love me, care for me, They're careful. Oh, be careful, you don't want to lose your money.
Yeah.
Be careful, that might not work. But when I hang out with property investors, they say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. You should try this as well. Have you thought about this? And here's some companies you might want to get in touch with. These are some brokers you might want to speak to, etc. So you're right, your environment really does make an impact on you.
Yeah.
And if you surround yourself with property investors who are doing well, it's going to rub off on you. It's going to rub off on you.
How do you manage your time? I mean, you're a pastor, you're a property entrepreneur, an investor, now developer, you're a granddad. I mean,
less of the granddad bit.
You look too young to be a granddad.
Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless you.
But how do you, because I think working hard is important, but also it's about working smart, managing your time right, taking massive action with the right kind of action.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? And how do you keep that spiritual, family, work-life balance amongst everything that you're doing?
Yeah, with difficulty, if I'll be honest. But you know what? I often look at my wife. My wife probably works twice as hard as me, but her life is so organised and structured.
Yeah.
You know, she's almost like on the clock. You know, to the minute, I know where she's going to be at any part of her day. My life is probably a bit more up and down. I can get a phone call that can totally disrupt what I had planned for the rest of the day. Yeah. Depending on the nature of the phone call. And I think the older I get, the more I'm realising that actually, as a parent, what our kids need in particular need more than toys and gadgets is memories. Right. So again, during COVID, I took my family down to Euro Disney, to Paris. Yeah. And so once the ferries had opened, we drove down to, booked it online, drove down to Dover, caught the ferry over to Calais. Euro Disney was open, the hotels were open, and it was great because it was empty. And we had a great time doing all the rides at least twice, sometimes even 3 times, because there was only 1/10 of the amount of people that were normally there. And so you do make time. I think what you do is that you find time in your schedule and you be intentional about it. So we was meant to go away for a trip. Because of lockdown, we didn't go to where I would have liked us to have gone. But you find a way around it. Well, we can't do that. Why don't we go to Euro Disney? And it was great because we had to drive there. It's about 300 kilometers from Calais to Paris. Great time in the car, great time on the ferry. You know, my son, who's 8 years old, it's unbelievable. He's blowing his mind. He's on the ferry. You know, he's in the lounge, so we had a really good time as well, looked after. Nice. And so what you do, you invest in memories. Yeah. And that memory buys you 6 months. You know, that buys you time. Right. It won't last forever. You know, that can't be the only memory they have. And so, but if you do things like that several times a year, that would be good. I tend to put things into a to-do list. If it doesn't go on the to-do list, I'll probably forget it and I won't do it. Yeah. So there's a visual representation of some of the things I've got to do. Yeah. And I assign a priority. Some of them have got to be done. So for example, tomorrow I'm doing a Zoom call for a group of pastors. And when they told me I was doing that, I said, I've got lots of time. But I realized looking at my diary yesterday, it's tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So yesterday I had to quickly type up some stuff, get some notes together, begin to think about it. After this, I'm going to go home, finish off the rest of my talk, and I'll be ready for it tomorrow. Yeah. And so I'm not always the best prepared, but I always end up being prepared.
But you know what though, people sometimes, I think sometimes you just got to do more but do things quicker.
Yes.
Because you could spend 3 months planning that tomorrow, or you could spend 3 hours doing it. And it would be probably not that much different. Yes. And I also think that people often will spend loads of time doing the stuff that they like doing but aren't that important. Yes. Like, I love what you said about doing the things that need to get done.
That's right, absolutely.
So as a property investor, you've got to pick up the phone. Yeah. You've got to book the person that books the most houses is the person that puts on the most offers is the person that wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than making spreadsheets on Rightmove.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know, doing due diligence on a property they haven't even booked a viewing on yet. Yeah, and then they just spend 3 hours doing a spreadsheet, ring up and it's sold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I buy all my properties through auction. Right. So I'm an auction. I love auctions, and the thing I like about auctions is the speed of them. Yes. Because I get very frustrated doing things the traditional way. You put in an offer, the offer gets accepted, but there's a chain involved, and any one of those links in the chain can scupper the whole deal for everyone else. And so typically, buying properties from auction. So I have bought a property from auction, completed in 28 days, refurbished in 28 days. And had it let within 28 days. So from beginning to end, from the time I bought it to the time I refurbished and had tenants in it and had the property revalued and pulled out my money was 90 days. I've done that several times.
No messing, but
no messing around.
I love auctions as well, as you know. I mean, I bought my castle from auction. You know, I like auctions, but my disclaimer to that is only buy at auction if you know what you're doing. Because I know a lot of people watch my YouTube videos, get excited and go do stuff. So I'll just say, get properly trained, know what you're doing. Surveys, legal packs.
Absolutely.
View the house first.
Absolutely.
Because you can get burned big time in auction.
Yeah, and I've stormed out of auctions before.
How do you mean?
I've got so mad at an auction because everyone's overpaying.
Yeah.
Because some people are buying with their feet. I know you say this, you don't buy with your feelings, you buy with your formulas.
Yes.
And so I've been in auctions where I'm like, the next property that goes that high, I'm out of it. And I just stormed out. I just got so angry.
Yeah.
Because some people are buying things, they just want the project. They're not investors. Not everyone who buys from an auction is an investor.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're romantically involved in the property.
Correct.
There's all sorts of emotions going on. And my figures, there isn't a column in my spreadsheet for emotions.
Yes.
This doesn't fit onto a mathematical formula. And so I've actually walked out of auctions before. I'm done. I'm frustrated.
It's funny though, because you, like me, are an emotional person, right? You know, you're a big person, you've got a lot of energy, but I assume you've had to learn, this is formulas.
Absolutely.
This is formulas.
The figures have to stack up.
Yes.
And in fact, I would say, I bought a property blind, as I mentioned earlier. And I would say most definitely should view properties, but what is most important is the number crunching.
Yeah.
It's like, what can you do with the property? Show me a floor plan.
Yeah.
What's the area like? What's the transportation like? What can I rent these rooms out for? What's going to be my return on investment? Roughly how much is, a new bathroom, a new kitchen, fire doors, door closers, intermittent strips. I kind of know roughly what that's going to cost. So I can do that in an hour on the property. And that is more important than actually looking at it, to me. If you can look at it, fantastic. And again, I've only bought one time without looking at it. But certainly you've got to do your figures beforehand. And if the figures stack up.
Have you ever felt like quitting? Has the property side of things ever got too much? Never happened?
Never, ever, ever.
It's all been good?
Never, ever, ever.
It's all been good?
In fact, I wish I'd bought more earlier, but I was busy.
I need to be careful, you know why? Because sometimes people say, I'll make it all look too rosy, make it too simple. And I'm thinking, listen, of course there are downsides, of course, and there's challenges and it's hard, but it is pretty rosy, you know. And on top of that, complexity is the thief of execution.
Yes.
If I make something complicated to make myself look intelligent, all that's going to happen is it's going to stop people doing it.
Yeah.
My heart is to see people win. My heart is to see people succeed. So I'm going to try and keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that people win. There's no bad intentions there.
For me, I bought my first property in 1996.
Yeah.
I've seen properties go in London from £60,000 to £900,000.
Yeah.
In 25 years. The same property. I've seen properties double, triple, quadruple, times 10 in London. In South London. So we're not talking about the richest parts of London. Goodness knows what's happening in Mayfair, Fulham, Wandsworth, Chelsea, and all those very, expensive areas. We're talking about areas like Stratford. I used to live on Romford Road, which is a road that leads into Stratford. And I was living there for 9 years.
Yeah.
In the early 90s. Prices down there have times 10 at least.
Do you think that that's going to continue? Do you think that in 50 years' time, though, we're going to say...
Okay, that's a great question. Because that's what we used to say 10, 20 years ago. Oh, it can't carry on like this. See, the reason I sold my house, my first one at 112,000 in 1999, I bought it in 96, sold in 99, was because I didn't think it could carry on like this.
Yeah.
The bubble had to burst. It's like we're always saying that. It can't, £112,000 from 6. So that's what we said. So let me get my money and buy it right now.
Yes. You know what's funny though as well, Clement? I always say, you probably heard me say this, look at the best case and wear your rose-coloured glasses.
Yeah.
But then look at the worst case, then look at the likely case, then make a decision. Let's say it doesn't keep doubling. Let's say it doesn't. Is it cash flowing?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's cash flowing positive and it doesn't double, you still make money. Best case, if it does double and triple and quadruple and it's cash flowing positive, you've become a multi-millionaire by mistake. I'm all good being an accidental millionaire.
Absolutely.
Most of the millionaires I know became a millionaire by mistake. They got started, they got a couple of deals, and then suddenly things snowballed, they became a millionaire. Listen, did you do really well? What was it that made you agree to come in on Winners on a Wednesday?
It's interesting. We was talking about it briefly beforehand. So I came to your crash course a couple of years ago. I was watching your videos before then, and I've been watching your videos after then. I've got a lot of information out of your videos, got a lot of content, and it's all free. I'm a landlord. Most landlords are quite stingy and tight, in my opinion. We don't like spending lots of money on stuff. And so I came to your crash course, thoroughly enjoyed it. I was there. I remember being there thinking to myself, this course must cost you at least £20,000-30,000 to put on.
Yeah.
I was like, it don't make sense. You got to start selling soon. So I was waiting for the big sale to come from you. And it only came the first day, I remember, really late at the evenings, like the last part of the day. I'm doing these courses, the deal finding extravaganza, and never use any of your own money, whatever it was back then, etc., etc. And so I was thoroughly okay with that. I was like, I hope you get enough people to cover your costs.
Yeah.
Because actually what you're doing, you're spending a lot of money up front, in the hope that people are going to jump on board the training to recover that's business, that makes sense. I don't have a problem with that at all. And so then, I noticed there was some negativity on the internet sometime afterwards. And some of it was troubling. Some of it was, okay, maybe I didn't see that, or that wasn't my experience and it wasn't my opinion. But I suppose if you listen to enough of it, it could even, mess with your opinion a little bit. And then I remember there was a thing with Alan Sugar. That was bad. I was like, Alan Sugar's this well-known billionaire maybe. Yeah. This doesn't look good. And I might have even posted something on social media. I felt I might have even messaged you on YouTube. I was like, Sam, you got to say something. What happened there, bro? It doesn't look very good, etc., etc. When I saw your rebuttal, I was like, you're right. And the evidence you put up, Alan Sugar probably has no idea who you are. He probably doesn't even remember meeting you. He's probably met 1,000 people. And I realised that, there's this bit of a vendetta going on. And I think I was actually part of a group called The Truth About Samuel Leeds or something like that. And I just listened to what they said, and I was like, there's a lot of hatred on there. There's a lot of bitterness on there. And it was like over anything. And I remember one time you surprised your wife. I think you took her to Paris. You said you was going somewhere else and you took her to Paris. And I thought, good on him. I'm a pastor. Any man that takes care of his wife, thumbs up from me. And I said, you got to respect any man that takes care of his wife. The negative response I got from saying that about you, I was like, really? Are you being serious? It was just, and it was bitter. It was this vitriol, and it was bad. It was wicked. It wasn't good, And so I thought, well, what? I remember I wrote a long post saying, listen, guys, I didn't come into this group to be insulted. One guy swore at me, told me to F off. I was like, whoa, okay. You might not want to say it to my face, I know there's a lot of keyboard warriors around. And I kind of responded to him and said, listen, all I did was say to the guy, he took care of his family, you guys just being angry. And the vitriol was so bad. I sent him a long post and I left the group. Yeah. I left the group. Ironically, a couple of weeks later, I think Amelia or one of your staff members, there was a general email out, have you ever benefited from Samuel's training? And I was like, you know what, I had benefited, but for some reason, because of negativity, I didn't really want to boast about it. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a weird thing. And I know better than that. And so I said, I'm going to just say my own experiences. And my experiences are my experiences. Coming to your training was very helpful for me. It was free. You can't go wrong with free training, And the information I got from your training, I implemented that and I scaled up my business, and it just gave me the confidence to do what I was really thinking of doing. And my passive monthly income is from 2,000 to 10 to 12,000. Yeah. It might even be more. These are conservative figures. And so, so why wouldn't I want to come and just celebrate that and say, well done and thank you for that.
Dude, I really appreciate that, man.
No worries.
Honestly. And I love what you're about. And I'm just really, really grateful that you've come.
Yeah, your haters inspired me.
Yeah, I know what, everything happens for a reason, and of course I went through a challenging time. I did have the press on me, a lot of negativity and stuff, and sure, I've grown through that. Yeah. But it's people like you that give me inspiration to keep going.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, and more power to you. And I see what you're doing, and I see you've got a heart for people. and I see that you have helped a lot of people, but it's the nature of this country as well. Part of the British psyche is that when someone's doing well, in America, they give you a round of applause.
Yes.
In Britain, they're like, you know, they look at you suspiciously, well, what have you done wrong? And, you know, people can't wait to pull you down. It's a part of our culture that I don't really like. Yeah. It's a very, you know, it's almost like it's like a crabology. I think in Australia they call it the tall poppy syndrome. You know, crabology is this idea, if you put a load of crabs into a cage, as soon as one crab tries to climb out, the rest of the crabs just pull it down.
Yeah.
All right, and there's a crabology mindset in this nation. If you do well, you know, whether you're a successful footballer, you know, earning lots of money, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're doing something, you know, people just, you know, being successful makes you a target for people. Yeah. And which is why, as you've mentioned, that a lot of successful people keep quiet. I know a lot of successful people, you would never know they're successful. They keep it quiet. There's a guy in my area who has 65 houses. You would never know it.
Yeah.
And he won't talk about it. He'll talk about it to me because he knows I'm, you know, and he helps me and he gives me some advice. But he'll never talk about it because he knows as soon as he says it, you know, there's going to be negativity directed to him because of it.
That's right.
And so, so that's why, you know, a lot of successful people just want to keep it quiet, don't want to let people know, etc. But, you know, respect is given where it's due, and you've been a help to me. It didn't cost me anything. Again, I think it just cost me a tank of diesel to get up to Birmingham and a night in the hotel, which was nice anyway. I could probably do with a break at the time. Yeah. And your training was really helpful for me. Yeah. And it really helped me in what I was doing, and it was a blessing.
We'll have to come down to your church sometime, anyway.
Absolutely, be very welcome.
All right, bro. Appreciate you coming out, man.
God bless you.
Respect.